This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about the best way to store large amounts of Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking about something very special called multi-sig or multi-signature. For the background for this, you probably should watch my video from a couple days ago, the best ways to store small and medium amounts of Bitcoin, and in there I discuss the different places you can store your Bitcoin. The most important thing is not to keep it on an exchange or keep it in an app. It's very important to move it to your own wallet so you can control the private keys. So for small amounts, and I would say maybe up to $300, up to $500, this would be whatever you would normally store in your wallet or your purse. This would be more kind of spending change. I think it's appropriate to hold on a software wallet on your phone. And my two favorite wallets at this point are probably Moon, which is MUUN, and Blue Wallet. So you can hold that on your phone, either Android or iPhone. For medium amounts, I would say maybe up to about $10,000. What makes the most sense for this, as I talk about in that video, which I'll link to, is single-sig storage, single signature storage, where you have one hardware wallet. I do like the Trezor, the Blockstream Jade, and the Cold Card, and this makes sense for up to about $10,000. This is a way of holding your private keys in cold storage. Your private keys are stored on the hardware wallet, and they never touch the internet, which is nice. When you store your Bitcoin on a software wallet, on a hot wallet that's basically always connected to the internet as your phone is, you risk it possibly being hacked. And when you do sign transactions, your private keys are unveiled for a very short period of time there. And if an attacker hits you right then, they're able to steal it. But again, on a software wallet on your phone, maybe up to $300, $400. And then single sig for up to, from call it $300 or $400 up to $10,000. You can store it on a single hardware wallet. Mike's Trophy Truck had a question: what happens if you have 10 Bitcoin, for example? Do you buy 10 hardware wallets and put each Bitcoin on a separate hardware wallet? Now, these hardware wallets are not cheap. They can cost anywhere from from $50 up to about $200. If you have 10 Bitcoin, you'd probably be able to afford 10 hardware wallets, obviously, but this becomes very, very inconvenient. If you store one Bitcoin on each of 10 hardware wallets, you end up with a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things that can get lost or compromised. So you'll have to keep track of those 10 hardware wallets, those 10 Trezors, as well as the recovery seeds associated with each one. Each one will have a 12 or 24 word recovery seed in case you lose that hardware wallet or in case it's damaged or destroyed. And so if you have 10 hardware wallets and 10 recovery seeds, this is basically 20 different things to keep track of properly. This is, I think this is a nightmare. I don't recommend it. It would work if you have lots and lots of locations to store this in, these various hardware wallets and the recovery seeds in, but I don't think it makes sense. And this is why there's this better solution, which is called multi-sig. So under single sig, which would be a software wallet where you just have one signature, or one hardware wallet where you're just signing with one set of keys, this would be single sig, where you only need a single signature to move your coins. And this is how Bitcoin works. For every UTXO, for every little piece of Bitcoin, there are private keys associated with them, which allow you to send or spend the Bitcoin. The better way to store large amounts of Bitcoin, as we've said, is multi-sig. Multi-sig stands for multi-signature. The most common that you'll probably hear about are 2 out of 3 multi-sig and 3 out of 5 multi-sig. So for example, the way 2 out of 3 multi-sig works is you will have different hardware wallets, preferably from different vendors, so that they don't collude against you. You'd have perhaps one Trezor hardware wallet, one Cold Card hardware wallet, and then under a collaborative custody model, which we're going to talk about, where a company helps you out with your multi-sig, you'd have an outside party that can sign for you. The other way of doing this is you could just have 3 hardware wallets that you control. So maybe you have a Trezor, a Cold Card, and a Blockstream Jade, and you set up do-it-yourself multi-sig. Now, in order to move your Bitcoin in multi-sig, you'll need 2 out of 3 of the signatures for 2 out of 3 multi-sig, and 3 out of 5 of the signatures for 3 out of 5 multi-sig. So in this case, I would be able to move my coins with a signature. Before I broadcast a transaction, I'd have to sign it twice, once with my Trezor, once with my cold card, and then I could broadcast the transaction to the Bitcoin network and have the Bitcoin moved, for example. Under 2 of 3 Multisig, you could also have that corporation that's helping you out, the company that's helping you out, sign one signature, then maybe you hold one signature, you sign one signature with your Trezor. Now, it's important that each of these hardware wallets needs to be backed up as well. As we'll see when we talk about Casa Keys, they recommend not backing up your hardware wallets. I think this is a mistake. You should always back it up with a 12 or 24 word recovery seed, which is generated locally on your hardware wallet. And you'll be prompted to do that when you set up your hardware wallet. So in this case, you need, there's basically just either 4 or 6 things that you're storing. If you're doing it yourself, you'll have 3 hardware wallets and 3 recovery seeds. That adds up to 6 items that need to be stored. If you're doing it with under collaborative custody, you'll just have 4 things that need to be stored. You'll have 2 hardware wallets and 2 recovery seeds. Again, each of those recovery seeds is 12 or 24 words in a certain order. You'll need 2 out of 3 of these to send your Bitcoin anywhere, to send or to spend or to move. These are all synonyms for moving your Bitcoin around. So under Multisig, you wouldn't want to keep more than 1 of these hardware wallets at your house. You don't want more than you don't want a quorum basically of signatures in the same place. So if you have 2 out of 3 of your hardware wallets in your house and you have a house break-in or some sort of attack, they would be able to possibly under force, obviously, force you to move your Bitcoin. So it's very important under Multisig, and this is the whole point of Multisig, to keep these different hardware wallets and signing devices geographically dispersed. So for example, you could keep one of them in a bank deposit box. You can get one of these, at least in the US, for not much money, something like $20 or $30 per year, for example. The only problem with bank deposit boxes is we are trying to move away from banks. If you're really into Bitcoin, you probably are not a fan of banks. And if there were a real crisis, it could become very difficult to access your safe deposit box, your bank deposit box inside the bank. If, for example, all the banks are closed for a couple weeks or a couple months. You could keep one of your hardware wallets at a trusted friend's house, at a relative's house. If you have multiple houses, you could keep them in multiple houses. Or if you have a property somewhere, maybe you bury one of them. The important thing, though, is to keep them geographically dispersed if possible. So an attacker would need to ferry you from one state or one country to another, or one location to another. It's one thing to break into someone's house and try to steal one hardware wallet. It's another thing to try to lead them around and collect the necessary number of hardware wallets from different locations. It's very unlikely, for example, your attacker wants to cross state lines with you or go through TSA security at an airport. One of the great things about Multisig, and one reason I want to start talking about it, is that if everyone used Multisig, criminals would stop attacking people at their homes, knowing that it would be impossible to steal their Bitcoin. Now, these home attacks, these home robberies of Bitcoin, I think are still fairly rare. They mostly occur in among high, well-known celebrities or entrepreneurs or public figures. And so it's not super common now, but I think this is something that could become more common in the future as the price of Bitcoin goes up. I should point out here that I do use Multisig. I don't keep anything at my house. I don't keep hardware wallets or recovery seeds. Everything is geographically dispersed, and it took me quite some time to really work out my own attack model. Obviously, the best thing you can do, don't talk about the fact that you own Bitcoin. I sometimes regret that I have done this, but it is what it is. And being a semi-public Bitcoiner now, people do know that I hold Bitcoin, and so I need to store it securely. And so I should let all attackers know I do use Multisig. I don't keep anything at my house. As I said, the best practice is to use different hardware wallet vendors. So if, for example, both of your Multisig hardware wallets are Trezor, you're more at risk if, for example, Trezor becomes a bad actor at some time in the future and decide to insert malware on both of your hardware wallets and somehow coordinate them and coordinate a signature. It's still a fairly low probability event, but it's good to try to plan for these things. And there's no reason to use two hardware wallets from the same company for Multisig. So if, for example, if you have one Trezor and one cold card hardware wallet and you use them in Multisig, these companies would need to collude to hurt you, which is an even lower probability than the already very low probability of one company going after you. Now, a lot of this may seem to some of you to be super paranoid and maybe thinking, obsessing about these things too much, or thinking about them at a very high detail level that might seem unwarranted. But just imagine what is going to happen to this whole ecosystem when one Bitcoin, instead of trading at 41,000, trades at 410,000 or 4 million or 40 million. And you can see why it will rapidly become very important to start thinking about these things. Even if you just have a small fraction of a Bitcoin right now, at some point it could have a lot of purchasing power and be very, very valuable and really put you under threat or under the possibility of attack. So that's why it's important to learn how to use these tools and to think through your own attack model, your own threat model before the stakes get really high. As I said, there are two different types of multi-sig. There's collaborative custody, where some company holds one or more keys. So if you're doing 2 out of 3 multi-sig, they'll hold one key. If you're doing 3 out of 5 multi-sig, they might hold 2 keys. And there are different ways of setting this up. You can really choose whatever combination you want. The other way would be do-it-yourself multi-sig, where you control all the keys yourself. Obviously, you keep them in different locations. Maybe you keep one with a lawyer, you keep one with an accountant, you keep one with one of your children, you keep one in a bank vault, etc. If you want to make it really easy and do collaborative custody, there are 2 leading companies in this space that I've tried out both of their services. I'm not being paid by either of them. None of these vendors that I talk about are paying me. So this is just my own experience. But I did think that Unchained has a very good product. Basically, you can set up a vault, or at least when I was using them, you could create a vault for free, and you basically add your 2 hardware wallets to it. Unchained Capital will have 1 key, and so they can sign for you as well. And these vaults, at least when I was trying them out, they were free, and then you'd only pay if you decide to use their signing services. And I think it was like $20 or something for them to sign. So in this way, you could keep one hardware wallet in your possession, keep another hardware wallet hidden away somewhere. And if you needed to move your coins, you could just contact Unchained through the website. They would provide a signature, you'd provide a signature, and you could move the coins. The important thing is Unchained Capital only holds 1 signature. They only hold 1 set of private keys. And as such, even if they were taken over by bad actors, they would not have the necessary quorum of 2 out of 3 keys to move your coins. The other nice thing about Unchained Capital is it looks like they do offer loans against your Bitcoin. So if you store your Bitcoin in one of their vaults, in one of their multi-sig vaults, which I said are free at the moment, you can leave them there, and then you can borrow against your Bitcoin at a later point in time. I'll do a link to this, put a link in the description notes below where you can see how to do this. And there's also a link to a step-by-step guide to setting up a vault with them, how to do it yourself with Unchained Capital. So you basically set up a multi-sig vault, you generate an address, and then you send your Bitcoin from wherever you're holding it now, on the exchange, on a hardware wallet, in a software wallet. You send it to that multi-sig address, and it now resides in this multi-sig solution. And it's a regular Bitcoin address, it's a multi-sig address, and no one can move that Bitcoin unless they have 2 out of 3 of the signatures. Casa Keys.Casa is another good one. This does it slightly differently, where you have 1 signature on your phone. You download their software, so you can sign 1 signature on your phone, which is your mobile key. And I think this is encrypted and stored in the cloud somewhere. You have a hardware key, which would be a Trezor or Cold Card or Blockstream Jade. And then again, as in the collaborative custody model, which this is another example of, you have the company can sign for you. This would be the Casa recovery Keys. So this is also a very user-friendly solution, and both these companies seem to be good companies to me. Again, I'm not being paid or compensated by them in any way. I've just tried out their services at various points in time. Unchained Capital and Casa Keys are two versions. Now, what's the problem with collaborative custody multisig? Two problems that I can think of is you will lose some privacy and some personal security. Unchained Capital or Casa or any of these companies, and probably some of their employees on a need-to-know basis is the way it's usually done, but they will be able to see how much Bitcoin you own, especially, and they'll be able to link it to your personal identity, because for both of these services, it looks to me that you have to sign up with your own name and email. You might use a burner email, you might use a disposable cell phone number, you might use a different name. You can try that and see if it works. These companies are not actually holding your Bitcoin, so they're not quite as subject to KYC as, for example, a crypto exchange might be. Nevertheless, you have to assume that if you sign up with them, even if you use a fake name and fake email address and fake everything, they can probably see your IP address, unless you can use a VPN, you can use Tor, etc. But at some point, you are risking leaking some privacy there. If you, the other piece is you'll be relying on using their node. So the only way you can interact with the Bitcoin network, the only way you can check your balance or send a transaction, receive a transaction, is using a node to interact with the Bitcoin network. So if you're not running your own full node, you are having to trust someone else's node. And in this case, you'll be relying on the Casa and Unchained nodes. And so you need to be able to trust that both companies, you need to be able to trust both companies and hope that their nodes don't get compromised or hijacked or somehow feed you false information. Now, once you have that multi-sig address, you can go to a public blockchain explorer. You want to do this over Tor so you don't link your IP address to your Bitcoin multi-sig address, but you can go to one of these like oxt.me, I believe it is. You can type in your multi-sig address, you can copy and paste it, and you can look up to confirm, at least using the oxt.me node, that you do in fact have as much Bitcoin sitting at that multi-sig address as Casa or Unchained tell you that you do. Right now, I would say Casa and Unchained are quite well-run companies. They seem perfectly honest to me, and so it makes sense. You know, they have VC investors, they have other investors. They don't want to destroy their businesses by somehow cheating their customers. But there reaches a certain point where, let's say, their companies are valued at a couple $100 million or even a couple $1 billion, and they're holding or they have access to $10 billion worth of Bitcoin. At some point, there could be it could be more worthwhile for the company to do an exit scam rather than just continuing to be a good actor. Again, I have no reason to believe that this would ever happen at Casa and Unchained, but you have to sort of think forward, as we said, what happens when Bitcoin is worth 10x or 100x or 1000x, where it is trading at today. This could be tempting for bad actors to do something like this. Again, they only have one key right now, but you can imagine a scenario where they, for example, they put in a fake node that gives you false information, and you sign the Bitcoin transaction, but you somehow send it to an address that's controlled by them. There are various permutations and combinations of this. So this is probably not a problem now, but could become a problem in the future, leaking a little bit of privacy and having slightly less security, both because you're trusting their website and you're trusting their the full nodes that they are running. So the best alternative is to collaborative custody using Casa or Unchained would be doing it yourself. This is something I talk about over in the paid section of Trader University. It's a fairly complicated setup, and you want to be careful that you do it the right way so you don't end up losing your Bitcoin. So I call this DIY, do-it-yourself, multi-vendor, multi-sig, where you use hardware wallets from 3 different vendors or 5 different vendors, and you can do 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5 multi-sig. I also show you how to do really weird numbers. You could do 6 out of 9 multi-sig, for example. This would be appropriate for maybe estate planning or if you have a business that's holding Bitcoin on its balance sheet, how do you distribute the keys and so that no one person controls them? For example, in a corporation, maybe Michael Saylor would have 2 keys and everyone else would have 1 key. You could imagine setups like this. You could also imagine estate planning or inheritance setups where you have a majority or a quorum of the keys when you're alive, but then you have your keys dispersed, and your accountant and your each of your children and your estate lawyer each have a key as well. I believe both Casa and Unchained also offer a collaborative custody version of this kind of estate planning, and maybe I'll cover that in a later video. So it does make sense probably when you're just starting out to use Unchained or use Casa. And then when you begin to hold even more Bitcoin, when you become really a hardcore Bitcoiner and you want to learn how to do this yourself in a really super private, super secure way where you don't have to trust anyone, where you're running your own node and where you set up the multi-sig solution yourself, then check out my Ultimate Guide to Bitcoin course. I have right now I have 2 lectures on how to do this. I call it the Ultimate Bitcoin Storage Solution. I teach you how to set up all your hardware wallets in the process, how to set up your own Bitcoin full node, and how to make them all talk to each other and integrate them. In addition, in this course, I also talk about how to buy Bitcoin anonymously and without KYC, which I know many of you have asked for and have been interested in. If you join Trader University Premium, you'll also get access to all of my trading courses, my Momentum Stocks course, my beginner's course to the stock market that really takes you from A to Z, as well as some courses on IPOs, trading options, momentum stocks, trading futures. This really used to be the emphasis of my site and of my training before I discovered Bitcoin. But these are still highly relevant, even though I don't talk quite as much about trading stocks on my site right now, especially given the Fed's tightening. This isn't a very good time for momentum stocks, but we will get back to it. In the meantime, I'm really spending most of my energy and most of my time expanding this Ultimate Bitcoin course. And watching this course will definitely make you a better hodler, because I talk a lot about the various forms of FUD surrounding Bitcoin, the various forms of attacks that can be levied against it, and how Bitcoin can survive them, as well as how to set up your own personal setup so that you're protected. You're protected from attackers, and you're protected from doing something stupid and actually accidentally losing your Bitcoin. So check out the online courses, check out the Bitcoin course. And if you're interested in this, be sure on checkout to use the coupon code YT99, YouTube99, to get the best price. Normally it's just $125 a month. This will get you the access to all the courses, especially the Bitcoin course, for just $99 for 30 days access. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.